Texans training camp rolled on from West Virginia. That's where I am. As you could see, a walkthrough Wednesday for the Texans, but still plenty to glean from it. Two important players return. What's their immediate role for this Texans team, and so much more. It's the four big takeaways presented by my friends at draftkits.co. Every league needs a customized, reusable draft board from my friends at draftkits.co. Check out the link in the description down below for more. So the Texans with a light day on Wednesday, just a walkthrough, no helmets, just nice and easy, but it was significant because it featured the return of two players. Let's start with the first one. Dameon Pierce makes his training camp debut, returns to the field. Now, I know it's just a walkthrough. Pierce has been working up to this very thing. He worked out on the side fields for a few practices in a row. The practice on Tuesday featured him working out on the side field in his pads with his helmet. So it's close for Dameon Pierce getting back. And wouldn't you know it, Dameon Pierce stretched with his teammates. He did the positional walkthroughs, and then he was out there right next to CJ Stroud with the first team on the field. And Dameon Pierce has missed most of training camp up to this point, over half of training camp before Pierce has been out there playing on the football field. A lot of workouts ramping up to this point, but going forward, he's got preseason games, he's got joint practices, and he still has a handful of training camp practices for the Texans so that he can prove that he needs to be on this roster when roster cutdown day gets here at the back end of training camp. So Pierce with plenty of time, and he's finally back out there, and I was surprised, but less surprised when I tell you the next thing, to see him right out there with CJ Stroud, right out there in the running back rotation right away. Now, the unofficial depth chart lists him behind Nick Chubb, but Pierce right away, first walkthrough when he's returned to practice, essentially, that was a little bit of a surprise. He's got the ability and the opportunity to find himself a spot here on this roster. No running backs have separated themselves just yet. So if Pierce comes in and in his practices and in his opportunities in preseason games and joint practices and shows something, why couldn't he be the guy? And there's plenty of time to do that here for Dameon Pierce. And the opportunity might be even more clear because the second big thing I noted from this walkthrough, Nick Chubb didn't even watch practice. Nick Chubb was not at practice, walkthrough. He was not there on the field for the Houston Texans. Now, Chubb left Tuesday's workout. He walked off the field with a trainer and didn't finish the workout. Daria Gumbawale was the running back with CJ Stroud for most of the end of practice. And so Chubb not present at the Wednesday walkthrough. That was an intriguing element. And this is a bad timing situation for Nick Chubb if he's injured and this injury lingers for a few days. If Chubb can't go, it allows other running backs to close the gap to him, maybe lap him. It allows Dameon Pierce to get right in there. You think about how they're going to build this running back room. Obviously, Joe Mixon's going to be on the team when he's healthy. Then if Dameon Pierce comes in, he's back and he has a really nice rest of camp, then he's a running back that's on the roster. We know Woody Marks is going to be on the roster, and Marks has put together some good days in a row. And then that last spot, is it Daria Gumbawala and his special teams prowess? Is it British Brooks and his ability to play special teams? Is it Jawar Jordan? Is it Nick Chubb? So he's got to get back from whatever this injury is that kept him out of the walkthrough. It's one thing you get dinged up Monday like Cam Robinson, the left tackle, did, and you end up watching this walkthrough after not participating in practice yesterday, but to not even be there watching, be a little bit of concern there for Nick Chubb. He hasn't been dynamic. He hasn't done a great job separating himself from these other running backs. It really feels like the spots behind Joe Mixon, and we know Woody Marks is going to be on this team, is up for grabs. And if Pierce returns and looks good in the return right away, when Nick Chubb hadn't looked super good throughout the course and the entirety of training camp, you kind of see how Nick Chubb might be on the outside looking in. It's a bad time for his injury to pop up. It's a good time for Dameon Pierce to come in, and if he right away, he picks up where Chubb left off and is even better, then all of a sudden you're talking about a situation where Dameon Pierce is the backup to Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb is not the backup to Joe Mixon. You don't need a backup plan for your draft board because your plan for your draft board for your fantasy league is draftkits.co. Customized, reusable draft boards. I have one for my big league. We use it year after year. I'm excited for it. They got the big sticker packs. You just got to buy the new sticker pack after you get the reusable, customized draft board. You can put so many different fun things on that draft board, from a hilarious picture of the league's worst player, or maybe you as the champion as the background, or maybe just your favorite team's logo as the background. They can do it all at draftkits.co. Check out the link in the description down below. You get 10% off. Use my code Cody, CODY25, CODY25 for 10% off your order. And if you had the customized draft board for last year, don't wait to order those stickers so you can stick it and pick it this year. Big observation number 3, Christian Harris back on the field for the Houston Texans. And it's been a long time coming for Harris, who did not begin the year on the physically unable to perform list. He did not begin the year on the non-football injury list. He was just on the roster, but not on the field. And the workouts, they started to trickle in here in the past week or so. He had the intense workout in his pads with Dameon Pierce in the Tuesday practice. So Wednesday, he's on the field stretching with his teammates. He goes through the linebacker walkthroughs. And then when the first team defense goes out there for walkthroughs and installs, he's out there with Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'oTo'o in the 3 linebacker set. Then he's out there with Azeez Al-Shaair in a 2 linebacker set. And then he's out there in a 2 linebacker set with Henry To'oTo'o. And you start to think, man, reintegrating Christian Harris, if he's the player he was in 2023, of course he's going to be on the field damn near right away. And of course you want to put him on the field and get him used to playing with Azeez Al-Shaair, who he barely played with last year. Get him used to playing with Henry To'oTo'o, who he barely played with last year. If 2023 Christian Harris, or something close to that version of Christian Harris, is what the Houston Texans have on the field in 2025, it's yet another weapon for DeMeco Ryans to go out there and deploy for this defense. And it continues to just raise that ceiling for this defense, which already has potentially best defense in football. It could get even better if you have that level of player on the field right away. Now, it may be a little tougher to integrate Harris right away than Dameon Pierce, because, well, it's a little bit different at running back and linebacker. And if there's any sort of multiple repeated athletic movements with Harris coming back from the lower body thing, maybe you want to ease him in there a little bit. But if you trust him between the ears and the athleticism is there from the word go, Harris makes a ton of sense to be out on the field with Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'oTo'o in those multiple linebacker sets. And when it's just 2 linebackers, you can mix and match, if you're DeMeco Ryans, which linebackers make the most sense in those situations. Harris is of athleticism, and of course his background before playing linebacker as a DB gives him a little bit of a coverage advantage over some of the other linebackers. But Christian Harris back working out and very close to seeing what type of player he exactly is in 2025. If you replicate 2023, it's a big-time weapon for this Houston Texans defense. Finally, some special teams observations for the roster crunch that special teams could help decide who those final members of the roster are. Let's start with punt return / kick return. It does feel to me right now that Braxton Berrios has a path to the roster by being the top option for those 2 special teams jobs that he has previously done for multiple teams. He's the first punt returner that goes out there for the Texans when they do and practice punt returns. He's a part of the kick return unit when they practice kick returns, and that is absolutely a path for him. He's looked like the best punt returner, the smoothest punt returner amongst the options that are consistently there. The other 2 consistent options, rookie Jalen Noel and Christian Kirk. Obviously, if those guys are heavily involved in the offense, maybe you don't want them on as many special teams moments. And Berrios has just played a lot more special teams than those guys, so it looks smoother. We know that the special teams coordinator Frank Ross emphasizes taking care of the football as one of the main jobs and how you ultimately earn and keep that job. And Berrios has looked smooth. I haven't seen him make many mistakes in the punt return and kick return situation. And he's got just a tiny little bit of juice there at the wide receiver position coming out of the slot. So he presents yet another slot option for the Texans to utilize. I could certainly see where the Houston Texans decide to keep Braxton Berrios on this roster as the punt returner, kick returner, and a backup wide receiver for this organization. Then you think about some of the other special teams units, that roster crunch where there's linebackers at the bottom of the roster, running backs at the bottom of the roster. I wonder if there's a little bit of a tip of the hand when I watch some of the special teams units, because as I was watching first team punt coverage, so the group that Austin Brinkman snaps to Tommy Townsend, he kicks it away, and they go out there and cover that thing. As I looked at the alignment, the players that were there in this walkthrough, I was taking notice because I saw EJ Speed. Well, that's a depth linebacker that I feel strongly, even without special teams, he would be an option for the Houston Texans at linebacker. Then I saw British Brooks. That's a depth running back for the Houston Texans. I saw Jake Hansen. That's a depth linebacker for the Texans. I saw Nick Neiman, a special teams specialist that we talked about the Texans adding in the offseason, but hasn't gotten a lot of opportunities there with the first team at all, and then sparingly with the second team. So as a defensive player, not high on the depth chart, but as a special teams player, he's there in that capacity. And you start to look at, okay, those last 5-6 bodies, what can they do on game day in addition to being a depth piece for their position? Like, do you keep one extra linebacker because a guy like Nick Neiman is so darn good at special teams and he's active on game day? Same conversation with Jake Hansen. Can British Brooks be one of those final backs on the roster because they like what he can do on special teams and the multitude of different special teams groupings that he plays? That's something that I'm going to pay a little bit closer attention to over these next few weeks, because if you start to see a guy get swapped out here, maybe British Brooks gets swapped out for somebody else, or Nick Neiman gets swapped out for somebody else on some of these special teams lineups, then maybe the depth chart is adjusting their jobs in a little bit of danger. But as long as they're going out there on first team punt coverage, they're right there in that 50 to 57 area of trying to put the roster together, one of those final 3 spots or one of those first 3 guys out as you kind of watch the rest of training camp. And some fans will get to go out there and see it, but that's going to be something I'm going to take a little bit more time to go and try to figure out if some of those special teams units tip the hand a little bit for the Houston Texans roster crunch. That's all I've got for the walkthrough Wednesday. What do you make of the conversation in today's big takeaways? Dameon Pierce replacing Nick Chubb, Dameon Pierce and Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon. Which running back room situation do you think the Texans are going to have? What do you make of Christian Harris's return? Let me know in the comment section down below. On your way down there, throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out SNL, myself, and Landry Locker from the Locker Room each and every weekday at 4 p.m. live on the SNL channel. That's in the description down below. Draft kits for your fantasy football needs. I appreciate you watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it like I enjoy this weather out here in West Virginia, and I can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.